Gaurav has joined. Ayataki, so nice of you to join.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Dr. Sarboy has joined. Nice. Shall we begin? I think Gaurav, how are you? Thank you, boss. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, good evening, all. Thank you. Thank you for the forum.
Hi, Gaurav.
So,
Great to see you.
Yeah.
Professor Neeraja Pandey, welcome, ma'am. Okay, shall we begin? I think we should begin. Yeah. So,
Good evening, everybody. Good evening.
right. Great. So I'll start the session now. I think it's only fair. So, welcome all of you to MSR India Chapter. This is the inaugural session today. I welcome all of you, and I start with the uh, invocation from Rig Veda. Ano Bhadra Kratvo Yantu Vishwataha. Let noble thoughts come to us from every side. And this is, of course, the vision of MSR also. So, one earth, one family, one future. And I mean, MSR and India chapter, better late than never, as Professor Rajen Gupta said. So, now we have started this, and in line with the MSR tradition, I would request all of you to just we'll do a short meditation. Just listen to this instrumental music for 2 minutes, and then we'll proceed after this. So I request all of you to concentrate on the music and just you can breathe normally. So let me start this small um, this instrumental piece. This is taken from Isha Foundation, and Desh is the. So I'll just please let me know if you can hear the. Is the sound visible?
Yes.
Yeah,
Is the
now
sound
you are
audible?
Yes.
Audible?
Yes.
It was. Have you stopped it
Yeah.
now? Yeah.
Thank you. Whenever you feel free, you can come back to the room. Now, so there are 3 slides. I'll just show those slides about, because it's an India chapter. Just watch those slides. Will not spend a lot of time. Maybe so I'll about India, because it's an MSR India chapter. So I'll just share this my PPT. So many traditions, many paths, one search for truth. Various traditions. India is land of Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism. I mean, there's so many traditions, so many diverse traditions in this land. I'm moving to the second slide, which is about timeless wisdom, the certain quotes from India's spiritual tradition. I'll read one of them from Rig Veda, that Ekam Sad Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, that is, truth is one, the wise call it by many names. Guru Granth Sahib, Vand Chhako, the Sikh tradition tells us to share what you have with others. And so there are many traditions. The Sant tradition, the Bhakti tradition says the divine dwells in all and all exist in the divine. I'll move to the next slide, which was some of the contributions of India. Spirituality being the paramount, there's so much that India has given over a period, very old civilization. And so very interesting. You can see one of the figures is of the Golden Temple, in which, the langar is there. Okay. So holistic knowledge, ethical living, sustainability, universal values. There's a lot India has given and can still give. I'll now just discuss the aims of MSR India chapter. And after this slide, I'll invite Dr. Payal Kumar, because there were some people who were behind this initiative, this MSR India chapter. This, what you see today, this presentation, I mean, this idea was because there were some concerned people, MSR top leadership, and Payal ma'am in particular, wanted that something, in line with a very excellent chapter that is there in Europe. They wanted that MSR India chapter should be there, and they really pushed me. They really asked to develop something, the ideas to connect with various people. And so I'll just discuss the aims, and then I'll invite Professor Payal to walk us through this idea. So aims of MSR India chapter. Of course, the first aim is to advance scholarship, rigor. So we will be dealing with management, spirituality, and religion. But this spirituality and connecting it with literature in a rigorous way. So there should not be any compromise in scholarship. Creating meaningful dialogue. One of the major aims of this chapter would be to connect spiritual leaders, to connect practitioners with scholars. And so many traditions are there. So we would like to have conversation across traditions, disciplines, and cultures in India. A really huge, collection of diverse cultures and opinions are there, and we would like to get those insights. Amplify indigenous voices. One of the research aims of one of our speakers, Dr. Ramya, her research interest has been in the same, amplifying voices that are not so much heard, that has bring somewhat different perspective from the Western academia. And so in this journey, bringing the Eastern, the global South perspective into contemporary management discourse. And then, of course, supporting future scholars of India, young scholars, in this stream of spirituality in research. And one of our discussion theme today would be how to publish in such a manner, in a manner that good journals accept that paper, how to bring that rigor part while connecting with our tradition, how to connect the rigor. And of course, the overall aim of to contribute to human flourishing is the overall aim of MSR. So exploring the questions of meaning, purpose, leadership, sustainability, and well-being, building bridges between ancient wisdom and contemporary organization challenges. So broad themes, scholarship, dialogue, human flourishing. As I say, rooted in ancient wisdom, engaging with contemporary challenges, and open to global dialogue. So these are the broad aims. And we are prepared to hear from all of you. Please suggest, I'll send a form. And there will be regular, the frequency as we have planned, the frequency would be monthly. So we'll deliberate and discuss more on these aspects as we move on. But now, I'd really like to invite Professor Payal Kumar, the founder, in the sense, the founder member, people behind the idea, and founder member in the sense of this particular chapter, the people who floated this idea, people who actually nudged me to go ahead with this. Professor Payal, would you like to say something, please, about this idea?
Yeah, we won't talk about the nudging in detail, but anyway, thank you. If you can give me the sharing rights for the slides. Yeah, thank you for your beautiful slides, very colorful, very unlike lectures where we have a lot of words on the slides. So I just want to give a quick background. The European group has been going on for some time. The chapter, Danny Sandra has been looking after that. Barbara is also getting involved, from what I understand, in another group, and we've started the India chapter. This was a suggestion by the current chair of MSR, Professor Tom Culham from Canada. And then in the leadership meeting, I suggested Aditya's name, and then he was interviewed, and we felt it was the right fit, and we asked him to, initiate this chapter. So I just want to share some. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Otherwise,
what
you have them. Yeah.
I'll open it from here because.
Go ahead. Not a problem. So just to give you a quick background, I joined MSR long time back, I think 2018 or something, when I started going to AOM, and I went to one of the meetings and I saw we received an email if anybody wants to come to a retreat. So I didn't join so much as a scholar, I joined more as a seeker. And I thought, this is a really interesting, what is this retreat about? And then since then, I've been on many more retreats. And that's what got me started. And I never thought I would go into scholarship in this area. So I just like to start by saying, for somebody who's not in this field as a scholar, they may think, is MSR not an oxymoron? It's like weird, like management is all about efficiency and performance, and spirituality is about inner development, and religion is about shared beliefs and rituals. So where is the connection between management and spirituality and religion? Somebody may ask that question, and hopefully my other slides would kind of answer it. But carry on with that same slide, please. But I just want to tell you my own experience. This is a picture of Lakshman Jhula in Rishikesh. Rishikesh is a very spiritual area near the Ganga. And at the age of 14, when I was brought up in England, I came from England to India, and I had a very powerful religious experience over here in which I was told, I felt a divine presence very strongly, and I was told I had to come to India one day and settle here. So I did at the age of 21 after my university degrees. I tell everybody I came to India with one husband and one suitcase, basically. So I started life over here. But it was basically due to a calling. So it's been spirituality has had a great impact in my life. And then on the academic front, would you believe I started doing an LLB at Lancaster University? And I left it after first year because I felt it was very boring and dry. And I actually studied BA in Religious Studies, studying world religions. And then I did a master's in Religious Studies from School of Oriental and African Studies, London University, specializing in Hinduism. So academically too, there was this connect or desire, to understand world religions. Next slide, please. So as the MSR program chair, we have received 82 paper submissions this year. You can see some are conceptual, some are qualitative. I mean, almost a, equal split. And there are various themes that you can see in these papers, obviously workplace spirituality, leadership, divine inspiration, guiding workplace culture, hope, dignity, mindfulness, creating resilient workplace, challenging the status quo, and identity formation. So, so there is obviously scholarship in this area along all these themes, which connect management, spirituality, and religion. I just wanted to share this with you. On the next slide, please. So I've just, listed here some of the papers that are going to be presented in this year's AOM. Just have a read of this. So quite a range you can see, from the individual level to leadership level to education and to even to something to do with marginalized artists, So there's quite a lot of different themes and scholarship that's going around the world. Next, please. So this is a paper that I did with Professor Joan and Professor Tom, which was published in JBE, which was FT50. So basically we drew on, so what was the problem that the problem that I face as a DEI scholar is that people, organizations may hire people who are, from marginalized groups, but they may not necessarily be included in the workplace. So say, for example, you hire somebody who's physically handicapped and they're on a wheelchair, but people may not sit with that person in the lunchtime. So diversity, I felt, does not necessarily lead to inclusion. So that was the conundrum we were facing. And we put together thoughts from Buddhism, Hinduism, and Taoism to explain that if you have this view of spirituality in which you feel there's a common thread between the whole of humanity, then, surely your behavior would reflect that. Next slide, please.
Payal, you may have your microphone covered by something. It's a little bit hard to hear.
It's a little bit hard to hear.
Better now.
I've got
That's
it
good
at
now.
maximum. Yeah, okay. Thanks for pointing it out. So I think why that paper was published is because we used a completely different angle to DEI. Most scholars talk about the justice angle or the business case for DEI, but we came up with a spiritual angle. And I think that's probably why it was published in a good journal. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Much
okay.
better.
Next, please. So this is a beautiful quote. If you can just read this from Swami Vivekananda. So we were arguing that if you have this belief, then you do not even need norms or regulations in an organization saying, do this and do that, in terms of DEI. It should come from within you naturally. I mean, it might be a bit idealistic, but there you go. We need idealism as well, right? Next, please.
Yeah.
And then this is another paper I did on the Sun Festival, which is celebrated in India. So again, different topics, but one can look at many, many themes. Next slide, please. Published in JMSR, and this one as well. This I did with Aditya. We looked at devotion. Many types of worship are talked about in Hinduism. One very powerful one is bhakti, and we looked at SD. Again, we're putting two seemingly disconnected themes together. I was invited to a United Nations conference in Seville about sustainability, and I realized over there that none of the SDGs are going to actually fructify on the date concerned, which is a worry. None of them are getting, and there seems to be a lot of infighting between countries and this and that. So we're arguing that, maybe you need to look at a different angle. Next slide, please. So we came up with this model, which is saying, bhakti is about, if we look at me, it's about reducing ego and ethical conduct. But it should take us to we, hopefully, where you look at service as devotion, joy and community, compassion, unity and diversity. And hopefully, if you go across that, then it should lead to respect for all living beings and yearning for sustainability. So we're arguing that maybe if nothing is working so far, guys, in the world, then why don't we just look at a completely different angle and look at the Bhakti Marg way of doing things? Again, a bit idealistic, but then that's okay. It got published. Next, please. So I actually joined MSR. It was a very old photograph I found from somewhere in my slimmer days. I joined MSR, as I said, due to this retreat, this mail I got about a retreat. I don't know whether you recognize some of the people here. Richard Paraguay, Jacob Eisenberg, Diana Kotler, she's over there. Jim Stoner, he's got his back to us. And that's how I got involved with this amazing set of people from around the world who seem to be thinking the way that I do, the same Welshung, you know? And I don't feel that many people think the way that I do. This is what got me connected more as a seeker, but it led me to leadership in the team, which I did not expect, but it also led me to publications. So hopefully that answers the seeming oxymoron at the beginning. Next slide, please. And I'm done in case you have any questions.
Yeah, I have one question. Why did you think about the India chapter? I mean, why this idea, and specifically thinking about, and where did, of course, the tradition part is there, but, how did you
Well,
think that?
India chapter is very natural, isn't it? Because so many religions were born here. You know, you have the Buddhism and Jainism, and you have Sikhism and Hinduism. IKS, a lot of people are doing IKS scholarship. So IKS is not about one religion, isn't it? It's about the knowledge systems that India has brought about. So it seemed a very natural trajectory that way. The Europe chapter is doing very well, and we thought, why not an India chapter? So that's the reasoning, basically.
Any audience, any questions you want to ask?
Yeah, so may I ask a question, please?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
please go
Yes,
ahead.
ma'am. So my name is Commodore Sunil Kumar. I'm a retired naval officer with 35 years service, and I've got 10 years of teaching experience. So I'm also a heartfulness meditation practitioner for about 13 years. I've been with MSR for about just less than 1 year, and we have had a similar thing going on in our last institution, which I was dean at. We started something called Indian Culture Study Forum, based on directions of Prime Minister's office to ensure that we get Indian knowledge system into defense management, into leadership and all that. So I have been associated with that for about 5 years. So, ma'am, long story short, I just want to come my 2 or 3 observations. One is that I also used to wonder about this oxymoron, no? MSR, because these two very different worlds. One is looking at complexity, one is looking at simplicity. So what is there? So over time, I had tried to argue within myself and found that I think one of the aim is to get spirituality into management. I don't think other ways does makes any sense. So is to get make management simple, make it more humane, make it more sustainable and all that. Okay, but if we look at the aims that we have made for MSR India, they're all activity oriented. Promote more research, to get spiritual leaders, to get whatever all that. They're activities, but I think we must have some direct aim, of whatever we are trying to do. What we do want to do with spirituality into management, to make management simpler, to make it more humane, to make leadership more spiritual, to help solve them problems based on ancient traditions, knowledge traditions which have, which are no more used, for whatever knowledge that exists in the world is what came after the so-called Renaissance in Europe, and all, older system, Greek, Indian seems to be, all washed under the carpet. So I think, could we have something more direct, which looks at and which also gives us something to look at what is the outcome we are getting out of activities here. as to how we are influencing management.
Definitely. So, in fact, in the end, I think that's what Aditya is going to ask the audience, that where do you think India chapter should go, which direction? But just to give you a little bit of a backstory, Academy of Management is huge. It's the largest conference. It's the best conference in world in management field, A+. And we were originally an interest group, not a division. There were 28 divisions. And so people didn't take our scholarship very seriously. What is this management, spirituality, and religion, as I said, so we work very hard, we've come up with symposiums and plenary sessions and this and that, and we work very hard. We had to create all sorts of huge reports. There was a whole committee just to do this, to show AOM, the leadership, that hang on a minute, we may be about practice and inner transformation, but we're also very much about how to affect management through our research, our academics. So for us, as we are all academics, so for us, the research part is almost as important as the inner transformation, or the inner transformation of an organization even. But yeah, I think Aditya could make a note of that, are we having any impact as a chapter? Maybe we could look at a 6-month review or a 1-year review. Definitely. Ramya, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just tempted to jump the gun and add something from what I wanted to say, is that why should spirituality be anything different or separate from management? I want to quote Professor Rajen Gupta here, who once told me that management is about management of life. It is not management only of some division within an organization or some part of life. It is about life, and many of us are spiritual in our own ways. It may not conform to certain traditions or certain set methods, but we all have a certain approach to life. Our inner worlds are shaped in certain ways, and that's what we might call our spiritual approaches, and which very much guides the way we manage things and the way that we are managed and the way we interpret our surroundings. So why should spirituality be outside management? In fact, MSR is therefore such a sacred space and a precious space that holds the space for doing this kind of research on all that is taboo in management. Why should religion be taboo in management? It is pervasive in organizations and in everything that we are seeing all around us. So is spirituality. In fact, I would say MSR should be MSR plus. We do not know what else might come into MSR, so that management becomes holistic, and MSR has the transformational potential for entire Academy of Management or the management research space itself.
Raja, would you like to add? Raja has raised his hand.
Yes,
Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think
Raja, go ahead.
I completely agree with Ramyaji with what Ramyaji said. But I had a couple of questions which came back to me out of curiosity. I don't know if it's the right time. I'm particularly curious to know how I can benefit, because there is one of the contributions which MSR India is going to make is to groom doctoral candidates. So that's one thing I would like to know more about. And second thing, one of the problems which I face as a researcher is, I'm not an expert, but based on some of the readings which I did, most of our nature of scientific inquiries have already existed in our ancient Indian systems. But we use most modern so-called qualitative and quantitative analysis to complete our studies. So do we also see from the MSR initiative bringing back those traditional systems of practice, researching or knowing? Because that's where our richness comes from. So this is just a general question.
Yeah. So can I answer the first part, because my dog has just come from a walk. Excuse me, he's joining our meeting. We are coming up with the MSR leadership, a rigorous mentoring program. I mean, it's not out in the public domain at the moment. It will be soon. So that hopefully answers the first part. We've been working on it for quite a few months, and it's going to be an amazing, I think, because I've seen other divisions' mentoring programs, and I think ours is quite good, so you need to wait for that. Second part, I don't know, do you want to take Aditya? And then after that, I would invite Professor Manish Singhal to say a few words as well. I see Professor is here. Could I ask you, Professor Manish Singhal? Because I think you were agreeing with what Professor Ramya was saying.
Yes, in fact, what I wanted to say was that I think we should go back to our heritage to be able to overcome this artificial divide. Artificial divide, which may owe itself more to the Western heritage rather than ours, which may also go back to the distinction between the sacred and the secular, right? Given that the religious was kind of invading into the public territory and they needed to kind of differentiate between that. So it is their heritage, right? And therefore, what we ought to be doing is to shine a light from ours to be able to see that it is this one light. And we only distinguish between that to our own peril, at our own peril, right? And therefore, how is it that you can kind of make efforts to kind of revisit that even inside regular organizations and not only religious? I go back to my own PhD thesis, which was on spirituality at work way back in 2000, 2006. And over there, it was about the study of spirituality at work, both in explicitly spiritual organizations. And I did it for Ramakrishna Mission, Aurobindo Ashram, Bharat Sevashram Sangh, and also 3 non-religious, non-spiritual NGOs, okay? And therefore social work organizations and as to how the conceptions differ. And what we were able to find from there is that maybe across these organizations also, the underlying philosophy remains the same, whether you are working explicitly in that field or not, right? So even in the regular organization, there is very much a space not only for spirituality, but also for religion. But given the kind of only one view should kind of prevail overall, and therefore it is either Christianity or Islam, or whether it is Hinduism or this and that, and therefore that is something which has become kind of overladen over the entire field today. I would believe that given the kind of conception that we have, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, I do not think we will subscribe to that point of view. And that I think is the insight that we ought to share from our side without necessarily bowing down to that particular dichotomy, which has become a feature of that field today.
That's very beautifully expressed. Just to let everybody know, Professor Manish Singhal was my guide in my FPM at Accelerate. And when I read his thesis, I was really surprised to find MSR in his thesis. And I'm like, wow, one person in India knows what MSR is. This is a long time back. So
Can I
sorry,
just
somebody
add
was saying-
something?
Yeah, please, ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And I think these are very amazing perspectives which we are listening to. From my end, I would want to just very quickly apprise that I teach a course called Leadership Through Literature, which is based on, the moral leader of Harvard Business School, Leadership Vision, Meaning and Reality of Professor Sampath Singh from IIM Ahmedabad. But what I've done in the last few years is that I've taken up a lot of Indian, say thinkers and the Indian knowledge system. Like I do Siddharth, where we're talking of Buddhism. I do Vishaka Dutt, where we're looking at Chanakya. I do Yugant, which is Iravati Karve. So we look at Mahabharata. So in fact, it is 5 Indian books, classical, where we actually really, as Sunilji was asking, that what is some kind of an outcome. So there we are looking at that MSR might be thought as an oxymoron, which I don't think so, but business ethics for sure is still quite an oxymoron. So how do we bring, ethics through the Indian knowledge system, apart from other books which are also there? So I just thought I'll, just connect this, and I can see Surya there, from IIM Kozhikode. So readings in literature is also there, and Surya was in my LTL in IIM Lucknow, yes. So that is how maybe the management, spirituality and religion in some way can be connected and made more, outcome based, as Sunilji was questioning. I thought I would just introduce this little bit here. Thank you.
And may I just make a short comment? Nothing more after this. So I know I don't want to take more time than is due to one person.
Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Commodore.
Yeah. So what I've also seen is that, I did my PhD in leadership development. And, so what I've also seen is that we are also trying to study spirituality from, management research perspective, ontology, epistemology. Sometimes these frameworks are not adequate to handle, what spirituality is. So we tend to complicate spirituality rather than simplifying management. Okay, my humble submission, it may be completely wrong.
Ramya ma'am, please.
Again,
Ma'am, you're muted.
sorry for
Yeah.
getting so tempted to answer some of those questions. I completely agree with you. And in fact, it is not enough if we just look at the study of spirituality and religion through different methodologies. We need different ontology and epistemology. And it is a potential for such newer thoughts on newer ontologies and epistemologies, or alternative, I will not say newer, alternative ontologies and epistemologies, which MSR provides a space for doing such research. I think that is what can be groundbreaking in terms of creating newer research methodologies also, and which can not be transformative for management at large. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And definitely, we are working with Raghu GM working. And he's here today. Thank you for joining. And Professor Oja has been guiding force in directing me, in taking me in this direction. He has taught me the philosophy of social sciences. I just saw him somewhere online here before. But definitely, I think you are very much on the right track, and I invite you to join us in some of these projects to come up with newer ontologies and epistemologies. In fact, I'm looking at non-text based knowledge, for instance. If you look at Indian sculpture, or it doesn't have to be necessarily Indian, but even if you look in the India chapter, I can mention it. If we look at classical Indian arts or sculpture or any of the other forms of knowledge, which are very rigorous in themselves, there is knowledge in that, and it cannot be studied by the same set of research methodologies or ontologies, onto epistemological positions as the way we are writing journal papers. So definitely most welcome, and MSR is providing that kind of a space. Let us nurture it. Let us hold that space for each other, and hope that we can come out with good work.
Professor Surya Prakash ji.
Hello, Professor Aditya. So thank you for this opportunity. Let me start by telling this is a very wonderful initiative. So thank you, Professor Payal, Aditya, and everybody else who sort of founded this. This was very necessary, and I will tell you why based on my history. So I wrote my first paper for MSR, always excited about MSR due to my association with Sri Satya Sai Baba. And I ended up writing in 2015 Vancouver conference when MSR was an interest group, not a division. So it was a paper on Karma Yoga, and it was well received. Came back, it sort of journeyed through some journals, never got accepted. Finally, IMB Management Review, Professor Mahadevan was there. He was kind enough to, sort of accept this in the journal. So it got published there. So, but the student actually got very worried after looking at this journal. So the student was excited to work on spirituality and some MSR related topics. Said, sir, nahi karna hai. I don't want to do this on spirituality. So what happened is, because of the students and their demands, and they're not very excited about MSR because they don't know where to publish, and it is very difficult to publish because it is little different from the regular the regular type of research that we do. So what happened because of them, although the interest was there in the MSR, but the publications were not there. It all went everywhere else. So the MSR India can actually focus on two things. The first thing, according to me, the humble submission, really start mentoring the student, as Professor Payal rightly said. Where we get a students, and this has to really get published, and good research, rigorous research, correct, and we have to train what's the definition of rigor. Now we are talking about various epistemological ways to look at things. So what is it that we need our researchers and students to be trained in? Can we have a separate coursework or a colloquium that can be invited to everybody else in India and also internationally? People who are interested to sort of research in MSR, this is something that we have to take up at a war footing if we want to have a space in the research, in that space. The second thing is about courses. Now, while I agree with Professor Ramya that spirituality is, after all, why it should be different from management? It's about life, and I completely resonate with it. But unless it is not, sort of rework this in a nice course and offered it to our students, our MBA students, or it only becomes written down in papers. And that is what Professor Nirja Pandey was very good in her course. She got that interest to the classroom. So all of the scholars, you also have to think how to communicate this beyond PhD to the regular MBA students and the regular executives. This is where because Indian knowledge system cannot be only about knowledge in journals and knowledge in books. And by the way, the number of, the amount of time people are spending in books and journals anyway coming down. So no one reads them anyway other than us. So how can we really take it to the people who really matter, who are going to make decisions and who are going to sort of sit on finances? This is something that we have to sort of
That's very, very
think about it.
valuable, Surya. What you
Yeah.
said is very, very valuable. Could I request, Aditya, can we to have two more speakers and then we can take questions after that? We need to respect the speakers. If you could ask Professor Rajen to, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for in the true Indian fashion for preempting all my planning and discussing nearly all the ideas that I had planned. You guys, I'm so excited. I'm really excited. You've discussed so many themes, some of which we will go in detail. Thanks, Payal ma'am, for bringing. So this I'll just speak. Raghuji is here, and I'm eager to hear his views. But just hold on, Raghuji. I've seen you have raised your hand. I'll come back to you.
No. I think let Raghuji speak.
Yeah, Raghuji, please. Okay.
I am eager to listen to it.
Yeah. Even I am.
Thanks,
Even I am. Raghuji, please go ahead.
A couple of things. One is all the work I have been doing for the last 40, 50 years has been action research on the ground. So I take key ideas from the Yoga Sutra, from Vastu Shastra, and from the Mahabharata, and I've been designing ways of studying organizations, diagnostics, everything completely based on Indic roots. And all my work has been actual application in organizations. And I've just worked in 3 or 4 organizations in great depth. Now, one of the difficulties I find, and Ramya ji is very aware of it, and so is Rajen, is that when I try to present it as research, it gets thrown out because most of the research frameworks are Western. And you want me to quote Western authors to prove that what I'm saying is relevant, when the ontology of Sankhya, the way we look at leadership, is fundamentally different. So my work, which is work on the ground, where we've actually transformed organizations, transformed cultures, and so on, cannot find a place in your current research frameworks. What do I do? I've got a hell of a lot of these actual transformation things to share. Some of them are even documented. Video documentations are there, whatever. And I agree with Dr. Singhal. I think one of the biggest problems is we are using Western ontology, Western epistemologies to study and prove the Indic system correct. And many of us are trying very hard to fit into that. I've seen this in organizations where people actually use very Indic, very familiar methods of managing, and they have to make a presentation to ADL or something like that. They distort what they have done so that they can make a presentation that is acceptable. This kind of gymnastics is a waste of energy, because the assumption is there is no such thing as Indian management. When we have been, everybody knows this, na? The history of Indian business and business houses with their particular ways of accounting and all of these things is very ancient and still followed by these families. Yeah. So I don't know how a group like this can help to make this relevant. Yeah, we know about the Marwadi systems and all of that, right? So I think that is something which I'm hoping would get taken up, because I've been struggling with this for last 2-3 years or more. When I started getting into academic interfaces, till then I wasn't looking at it at all. That's where I am. So it'll be great to work with, like I'm doing with Ramya ji and all that, to work with some of you and say, how are you going to take this into something where we actually have an Indian way of looking at wealth and looking at all of that.
Absolutely.
So long as we continue to look at wealth the Western way, you're going to talk about management the Western way. So a group of us is bringing in ideas like Ashtalakshmi.
So I don't think we have the answer right now, but I think part of this first chapter, the inaugural chapter, is to pose the right questions, isn't it? So this is something we would need to take up in further discussions, definitely. So we do appreciate
That's what
that.
I'm suggesting, Payal
Yeah,
ji.
Anji. Absolutely, very, very pertinent.
We will continue to have these discussions. This is the main idea, the idea of anubhuti. Now, how do we represent that? So in future meetings, we are going to go into it. Raja, just hold on. I think I can say to you that just hold on so that we can move ahead. And so there was there's a discussion about mentorship. A very interesting chat statement. I request everyone to just keep on looking at the chat. So there was some discussion on mentorship. I'll show just a live example of how I was mentored through MSR. So please don't get fooled by this bald head and this old skin. So I was a late entrant, but as a late entrant, I was supported by MSR. I just want to show something, because acharya, acharan, by the action, things are you can see that people really mean what they're saying, and MSR has done something, and I'm live example for that. So I just want to show something here. Just hold on. Just a minute. I'll show. Yeah. If it's not there, I'll share that. Yeah. So can you see the screen in which I have actually sent a mail to Professor Lee Robbins? When I joined MSR, I was doing my PhD, and I got some award through MSR, and it was Professor Robbins who actually supported. He gave $1,000 reward, and that was a big boost at that time. That I'm doing some kind of work which is supported by a professor. Now, when I joined IIM Ranchi, I wrote this mail to him that it was that support meant a lot from a person of his eminence. So, and I copied Judy in that. There's another mail in which so MSR has actually helped, and in that journey, I would really like to acknowledge the contribution of Payal ma'am. She has told that look, MSR exists and they are giving out these scholarships to so many Indian students, so many. And once they knew about the Feds scholarship and the opportunity, they took that benefit, and also mentorship, also about writing. So she's paid a lot of. She supported the Indian community, and I think many young scholars would agree with that. So okay. Once again, thanks a lot, guys, for actually.
So sorry, Aditya, if I could just, FETSA scholarship, nobody knew about in India. So I was in touch with Judy Neal, and then I came here and I wrote to hundreds of colleges, and I even mentored the first few scholars to fill in the form and all that. And then now every year there are Indian scholars who win that award. I mean, it's fizzled out now, but it was a huge award, all expenses paid and all that, So But I just want to, I want to turn something on its head since we're talking about ontology. I was very surprised that one article got published in AMD, Academy of Management Discoveries, on something to do with, I forget the specifics, I don't have Professor Manish Singhal's memory, but it was something about farmers' wives, some rural women, in Indian villages, and how they negotiate their lives, like how they need to negotiate with so many people on a constant daily basis just to survive, right? And I read that article and I thought, but we know that in India. It was so self-evident. I didn't understand what was the contribution to knowledge. And I had an argument with the chief editor. I met him in AOM and I said, what was this? But he says, no, it was very well, grounded theory and this and that. Mujhe koi theory nahi nazar aaya. So, that again is a question, isn't it? That for Westerners, they may see in their eyes something is new, but like we've known about it for a long time, even our ancient wisdom, if we parallel that. So we read HBR articles all the time. But in the Dharma Shastra, there's a beautiful line which says, what is the dharma of a king? To do the right thing at the right time. Just summed up in strategy of a leader is just summed up in one line, So sorry, we keep interrupting, but I really want to hear Professor Rajen Gupta's talk.
Yeah, I'm just coming to, I'll just, at this juncture, I just wanted to remember one more person from MSR who has passed away. Here is the mail. Can you see this? Look at the date, around 6 years back, Ornita. She's no more with us. She was the one, she was contributing, and 3 finalists for the dissertation award. So this, at this moment, I really remember her, and she's so, she used to help a lot. Judy is, of course, there helping out. And this, as ma'am said, I came to know about this through the efforts of Payal ma'am and, MSR team. This was so remembering Onita Burton and, what a great soul, She's really, and today we really remember her. I think the entire, all the people present here really remember her, and she's done a lot for not only students in US, for all of us. So I would now like to move ahead, and so I'll close this one because just a minute. Yeah. So basic today we were the initial plan was to have three discussions, and already something has started, but now we'll go and I'll introduce the three main speakers very quickly. Although all three of them are so embarrassed, they are saying, you just please shorten it, and but please just bear with me, because after all I have prepared these slides, I have to show them. So here is so first of all, the three main discussions today were planned with Professor Rajen Gupta, Professor Payal Kumar, and Professor Ramya, and all the ideas, and in fact more ideas have been discussed, but there were three ideas. So initially I'll just introduce Professor Rajen Gupta. So first of all, he's my PhD guide. So he's Pitamah. He's a grandfather, and whatever I have learned, I've learned from him, and we in his lineage, so much work has been done, and a lot of thanks to him. So he worked in this area of human behavior and organizational development. He was with MDI, was with IIM Lucknow for 10 years. He has been associated for far too many top academic and professional bodies to list here. So I'll not even begin listing those. Now, way back, he was always interested in this linkage between Indian culture, management, and he was also interested in the spirituality. And he wrote a paper called, Is There a Place for Sacred in Organization and Their Development? Now, this has already been discussed. So I would now invite Professor Rajanji to touch upon this idea, which has already been discussed, that, spirituality, MSR, management and spirituality. Is there a place? What do you mean? Management, business means money. As ma'am said, on these oxymorons, so this idea, more importantly, I'd really ask him to touch upon his spiritual journey, and why he continued to support students who came with these ideas. Professor Ashish Pandey came, Puneet Bindish Saab is there. So many students who came with various ideas, and he supported these ideas, which were not easy to write. The point that was touched by Raghuji, the point that was touched by other people also. So Rajan sir, this I don't want to tie you down. You feel free. Go ahead and
Thank you, Aditya.
yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
so much. I was really enjoying the discussion, the comments by so many people. This is an indication that how much we have to do in our chapter. So I think really posing real challenges for MSR. And I believe the India chapter, I have always believed when I started that when I was just 22 years old, I had realized that India is the most complex society on this planet. So if we can understand Indian society, we can really make big contributions to social sciences globally. But then after I joined IIM Lucknow, and I'll just tell you about my story a little bit. We don't have much time. That is when how I think what I'm thinking, Aditya, is that when you suggested that we talk about this paper, you asked me to do that. I actually thought that my paper is out of date because I wrote it some 33 years ago. So I thought we have crossed that hump. But most of the comments which were made, which were the concerns which were expressed, seem to echo the challenge which I was trying to address at that time. So I'm both, in a way, I'm happy that my paper seems to have some relevance right now. But I'm also definitely concerned about all the challenges which people are posing. So let me just tell you briefly how I came to write that paper. I won't go into the paper because I don't want to be too pedantic, and I'm sure Aditya can share the paper with this community, and people can read it, whatever it is worth. And I thought one thing I want, perhaps my story would tell is, perhaps which is also has some relevance, is that this debate between management and spirituality actually in some ways played out in my life. I will not go into too much detail, but I'll just tell you the milestones. Just to tell you the milestone, first important, and we have not talked about religion. I think that's an elephant in the room. Perhaps we should address it in subsequent meetings of the MSR group, because that is the elephant in the room, the big elephant. And in India, we have a great opportunity to try to learn about how to tame it. So, but to tell you briefly my story, I also started, I was the son of a very religious father. But then as a teenager, I revolted against his religiosity. I became an atheist. Then when I was 21 years old, I discovered Sri Aurobindo accidentally. I also had a mystical experience by his grace, which made me start to think about spirituality. But the irony is, as a scholar, when I joined IIM Ahmedabad for doing my PhD, I was myself quite enamored by American theories of organizations and OD. And I think they are very fascinating. I still think they are very fascinating, and they must be read by any scholar. Whatever wisdom we have, I think we live in a global world today. We are not Coop Mandoops in India. we have to interact with the world, we have to do business with the world, we have to interact with multinational corporations. So a very narrow view of religion and spirituality is not going to be functional. So that is one caution I want to make to people who seem to think that we are not, taking seriously our own heritage, and that we should focus on that and that alone. I think that is a very narrow view in today's world. But I myself went through that. That's what I wish to say. I was no different. So after my initial discovery of spirituality without religion, this is a topic I have been suggesting to Aditya about for discussion sometime. So I accepted spirituality, but I did not accept religion. And then I got exposed to the American ideas, beautiful theories, organization theories, OD theories and practice, and wonderful humanistic management, which is very close to many ideas of Indian origin. So, but it was only after I joined IIM Lucknow in 87, and I did a very thorough survey of what is going wrong in India. That was 1989-90 was the worst period of Indian economy after independence. And I did a thorough literature survey, and I looked at culture as a possible dimension. And I uncovered cultural factors which were making American ideas not optimal for Indian conditions. Please mind my words. I'm not saying they are not relevant, but they are not optimal. We can learn from that, but we need to develop our own ideas. And in that list of ideas, I had one set was cultural factors. I will not go into that. But even for me, religion is definitely part of culture, and spirituality is something universal, perhaps. I will not go into the reason I'm saying so, but we can go into that if there is time. So my first discovery was that Indians are greatest believers in religion and spirituality in the world. World surveys show this. And India was a place, as was mentioned by one of the participants, that in India we never divided this domain between religion and spirituality. So I emphasize that we cannot create best organizations in India unless we recognize the religio-spiritual dimension of Indians. So that was my emphatic inference based on detailed review of literature on Indian organizations. And so that was the beginning of my wanting to bring together the question that management of organizations in India requires recognition of religious spiritual dimension of the human beings in India. I was only focusing on India at that time. So to me, that is what brought together management and spirituality and religion. If you have human beings working in your organization, and if you recognize only a part of their selves and you reject parts of their selves, how can you get the best performance out of them? So it was very obvious to me that you can't get the best out of an Indian employee if you deny his or her religious spiritual orientation. So then there was no question about bringing it together. It was to the disadvantage of the managers and management and not to recognize it. Of course, one can go into various global forces at that point. But I must add that then in 1993, I went as a visiting professor to the Rotterdam School of Management. and I experienced European reality personally, which was wonderful in many ways. But that made me conscious that how Europe was the place where this thing got separated. As someone mentioned, through the periods of Renaissance and then through Enlightenment and then through the whole Protestantism coming into play and then Industrial Revolution coming in, all this led to what is known as secularization as well as individualism. And these two forces together created this schism between the public life and the spirituality and religion. And organizations, business organizations and other, they were part of the public domain, not the private domain, which was restricted to the families. So I became aware of it. So I thought I needed to articulate this, what has happened in Europe, which has led to this schism. And that is where I started writing this paper when I was in Holland. So this paper really was my experience of going to Holland, spending a year there, and then reading a lot of literature, which helped me understand what had happened in Europe, which led to this schism. So that is what I have described in this paper, the argument. So here I shifted from concern for India to concern for the world. And that's where, and I somehow, I don't know why, but I'm glad I avoided the term religion and spirituality. What appealed to me was the notion of the sacred. And to me, that encompassed both religion and spirituality. And so that's why I titled this paper rhetorically, Is There a Place for the Sacred in Organizations and Their Development? And so I was arguing what everybody was saying it. Why is there divide? Why is there separation? And I tried to argue that this is a historical process. It does not represent the reality, human reality. And we need to recover this holism rather than sustaining the schism. So that is where this paper really took shape. And after I came back to India, then I published it in the Journal of Human Values. And some of the people like Aditya and Chirag, they somehow found it quite stimulating as they worked on this theme. And I continued to pursue my interest in both in culture. I have personally been both, culture and religion and spirituality for me are part of the same basket. And somehow to me, separating spirituality and religion, I think the domain of spirituality and religion would benefit by looking at it as a cultural phenomenon also. And maybe someday we will talk about it. And of course, I personally believe this too narrow a focus on what was being called IKS, and that too in a very narrow, only Vedic tradition being called IKS, is again, I believe, our chapter should break this narrowness and try to look at otherwise we will try to come out of one quagmire and get into another. We should not forget Huntington's warning about clash of civilizations. And we should keep that in mind when we look at MSR domain. Let me just add one or two things and then I will stop. That as Aditya mentioned, and we were talking about doctoral scholars, so I think I moved, so these papers were early 90s, then I moved to MDI in 1997, and we launched the PhD program there, where we were perhaps the first to really open up the field of research by raising philosophical questions rather than accepting the positivist orthodoxy, and open up the field for more ontological perspectives and more methodologies. And I'm glad to say that we were quite successful in doing that. And as Aditya said, because of my interest in these domains, I was very glad to get scholars who were very genuinely interested in this. And the first scholar who was interested in this domain was Professor Ashish Pandey. And he was very hesitant to get into this domain because at that time, this was not acceptable. Very, very few people in the world of management were even talking about it. And but I was able to support him, and he did excellent work. And I would like people to look at his initial work where he did what we call Purv Paksha of the Western knowledge base, and then introduced the Indian wisdom, demonstrating the special contribution Indian wisdom can make. I think we must recognize that we are part of a global world. I'm repeating myself. And for that, we have a double burden. The scholars in India have a double burden. And we must accept this burden for our own sake and for the sake of the world. That we have to understand this whole Western management canon and critically examine it, and then deeply understand Indian traditions, not by one text, but getting into its depth. And an Indian knowledge system cannot be really used properly, even as a scholar, if you do not do sufficient sadhana. Otherwise, you are unlikely to really show the uniqueness of the Indian knowledge system to the very rigorous, intellectually and methodologically, very rigorous scholarship which Westerners do. We must appreciate that, and we must see how we can do scholarship. And I'm not saying it lightly. I know Raghu, I genuinely believe Raghu is doing very creative work, and I appreciate his anguish. So perhaps one thing which MSR in India should seriously consider is to initiate a journal, some kind of forum in which Indian scholars can publish their work and kind of achieve respectability for that outlet. Perhaps we must do that. And we must, as Ramya was saying, we need to give space to new ontological and epistemological perspectives. And then, of course, also challenge the Western hegemony. And fortunately, in MSR division, we have excellent collaborators in the West, and we must take their help, and we must help them understand Indian systems better and appreciate them. So there is a lot of work to be done, but I am really glad that now I have retired more than 10 years ago. I am not actively engaged in it. But talking about Raja, I told 4 years ago I will not accept any formal position, but I would love to engage with scholars in whatever they want to do, and do good research. And I'm glad a few people take help, but I think I have enough time to be able to do something more in this regard. So I really wish that MSR India chapter, I think Aditya, I don't know if it would be acceptable to larger community because it might seem sectarian, but we should call it MSR Satsang. At least as a tagline, we should add something to that effect so that we get because Western conception of a chapter, academic chapter, tends to be again driven by the Western worldview Perhaps we need everything could be introduced. You could introduce the flavor in every bit and every bite. So perhaps we should design, we should consider calling it MSR India Satsang, or whichever way it can be, which is acceptable, so that we bring in that flavor of really spirituality even in our way of organizing and conducting this forum. This is also an organization, and see how we can bring that flavor in. So I really enjoyed listening to the comments, and I think a lot can be done, and I would be glad to contribute whatever I can. And I wish all the best, Aditya and Professor Payal, who has taken this initiative. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and so much to learn. So much to learn. I'll now so in this discussion in between, prior to what Professor Rajenji said, and he also included the same idea, that you have to collaborate. We are part of the world, as Professor Rajen said, that and Indians have a double burden. So we have people here who Raghuji is there, Professor Manishji is there, who says that look, this we have to recognize the fundamental differences between the Western conception of society and management and the Indian conception, and there's no point to go on combining them and doing a shoddy work of adding two constructs from India and two constructs from West and just creating papers. So so this is one stand. Now there is another issue, and on that issue I'm going to invite Professor Payal very quickly. We have 11 minutes, ma'am. 4 minutes for you, 4 minutes for Ramya, ma'am, because we want to close on time.
So let Ramya speak, no, because I have said my bit in the beginning. I don't think Ramya. Let Ramya. Ramya?
Just maybe two.
She's not well, but
yeah.
Are you feeling up?
I have a couple of slides I can quickly.
Please go ahead.
You will need to give me permission, Aditya.
Yeah, you send me those slides here. There's some issue in the AOM. This thing, they have made a setting that no other person can do for now. So I'll be more prepared next time. If you just can send me in WhatsApp.
Okay, I'm just mailing it to you. I'm mailing it to you right away.
Yeah, you mail me. Meantime, I will quickly get a word from Payal ma'am about this issue. Now, here is what I want to ask Payal ma'am. Look, of course, the differences are there, but you need to publish. Some of the Indian scholars, myself as a professor in IIM Ranchi, the policies are such that I need to publish, and I want to work in the field of MSR. So how to do rigorous work and how to do rigorous work? Okay, that's one thing. But how to get published? How to prepare article in such a way that it gets published? And you have been published in FT50, you have published in top journals. So that is the reality. Some of the young scholars who are budding scholars looking for jobs, they want it to get published. So
I would suggest to young doctoral scholars that first, try conferences. So for example, AOM, our MSR, we got a lot of good papers. They went through peer review. Some were rejected. A lot of them were accepted. Go through that process. Because there is a space over there, right? There's a space, there's an MSR division. Like I said, it's taken us a long time to become division status because people would not take our academics seriously, but now they are taking it seriously because other scholars are also getting published in FT50 journals. It's not just me and my authors, right? So now that seriousness has come, so I would suggest first send your papers to conferences. And anyway, if you see very good papers, A-grade papers, at the bottom, you'll always see a note saying this was earlier presented to so-and-so conference, because you get immediate, not just the peer review, but you get immediate feedback from the audience also. And then you can, revise your paper accordingly. And then you have another space, which is JMSR. I'm special issues editor in JMSR. So that's specifically for management, spirituality, and religion. And I've just received a proposal for a SI on IKS. So there are spaces. They may not be huge spaces, but there are. I hope I was audible.
Yes, you are. Yes, you. I've yet to receive the PPT. As soon as I
I
receive the
have
PPT,
sent it. I have sent it, Aditya, to you.
yeah,
Otherwise,
I'm.
I
Okay, you can start. By the way, you can start. As soon as I get it, I'll share it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, I was just mentioning a little bit. I think you had requested me to share about my own journey and know how I have arrived at MSR. So I started off as an engineer. No, I am a BTech in computer science from the National Institute of Technology, Calicut, and no, very much started off with a left-brained kind of thinking. I spent a large number of years, about more than a decade, in the IT industry, and was yet another software engineer or a techie in Bangalore in India. During this time, I did my MBA from IIM Bangalore. This was a no postgraduate course in software enterprise management, and it was a very heady experience. Trying to no, it was a weekend course, and to try and be both in the industry. So I was working with Wipro, and then I worked with Cisco India, and then with a company called Saskin. So at the end of my MBA, I had this. I did this finally a project which left me with more questions than answers. And that led me to do my PhD. So this is to cut a very long journey pretty short. And in my PhD, as expected, considering my background in technology and in IT, I did a very highly quantitative thesis on a multi-level modeling using cultural dimensions as an explanatory variable and international business outcomes as a dependent variable. Now, I received, of course, a lot of criticism, but this was a very, very rigorous piece of research. But culture, something as big and complex as culture, I reduced it to a couple of numbers, which is Hofstede's cultural dimensions, and made my explanations using them. I was myself at that point of time a bit, dissatisfied with whatever I did, because I felt that there's something much more. I'm missing something in my approach to research, because there's so much more about culture that I'm not able to capture in this. And that led me to take a step back, and then Professor Abhay Oja's course on philosophy of social sciences helped me, and I started looking at it as to what are the different philosophical positions one can hold in research, and that this was just one of the pragmatic approaches to look at culture in this particular way, and there are many different onto-epistemological positions from which one can look at culture. Now, this led me to from this philosophical perspective. From there on, I moved on to critical perspectives, because when I attended one of the conferences, this was of a Strategic Management Society conference, which was an India special conference, and it was held in India to teach Indians how to do research, and that we are not good at doing research and all that. Whatever, I experienced it in a certain different way. I did not like it. I thought we were a civilization with so much of knowledge and so much of legacy to us, and to be told that we do not know how to do research, it sort of pained me. And then I wrote a critical perspective about it, which was published and acknowledged as a very authentic work. And from there on, I understood that maybe just staying with the critical perspective, I was not able to move too much forward. I said, okay, I started looking at others' perspectives, and thankfully, to Professor Oja's guidance, I was able to move towards decolonial perspectives to management, and that's where I am. So, decolonizing means both falsification as well as reversal. So, falsification is to call out and say that what we are using here is not necessarily, as Professor Rajen Gupta was saying, not necessarily optimal, right? I would not say it is irrelevant. It is possibly not optimal. Again, as Professor Oja also says, it is not about it's not about dismissing the wisdom that we are receiving from the West, but it is to be able to stand on our own feet for some time, and to be able to think for ourselves as to what makes meaning and what makes sense for us, right? So this is the thought stream that has led me to think about creating spaces for indigenous wisdom. So what could be indigenous? So when I say indigenous, it is not indigenous in the sense of the United Nations definition, where there are 476 million indigenous people living in marginalized populations of the world. Indigenous to me is knowledge based on an emic view of the world, often very meaningful within a community or culture, possibly with distinct philosophical foundations, and those that provide alternatives to the Western culture and culture of science. So this is only about providing alternatives, because we are in a world with many kinds of crises and we need alternative and better ways of thinking. And so indigenous research is, is distinct from just what we might call context sensitive research, because context sensitive research still uses the same Western scientific paradigm, and you're trying to create constructs, and you're trying to use local subjects, local language. But indigenous is with different onto epistemological basis, and therefore there is a strong case for context sensitive decolonized indigenous paradigms, because existing management theories have failed to create a sustainable world. And if we want to create these indigenous wisdom and these paradigms, and we want to uncover it, we need to create the space for these onto epistemological positions. And if we want to do that, MSR is one rare space which can provide that, because it is particularly the study of spirituality and religion that does not lend itself to scientific studies as easily. You cannot study the inner workings of the mind and the spirit through the same methodologies that it is possible to study other kinds of phenomena. And therefore, I think MSR is a very, very promising space. Now, why are we unable to see and access indigenous knowledge that can be so valuable all around us? It is definitely because we don't see it, we don't acknowledge it. One is, of course, the lingering effects of colonialism. The other is also about the need for even if you take qualitative studies, we have very heavy text heavy approaches, right? We have approaches we have rich thick qualitative studies, but the input is text, the output is text, and we are unable to access tacit knowledge which is there in our indigenous context. And therefore, I think in my own research purpose is to create these spaces for indigenous wisdom, which may be beyond text, it can be with text. So for one example, that I have been working on is with sculpture. There are also other collaborations that I have with others on classical arts, such as classical dance, on poetry, on theater. But I just want to end with this last one or two slides, if you can show it, Aditya, on the barriers to the creation of such indigenous knowledge. This is just last one slide, and then I will end with the spaces. The next one, Aditya, on barriers to the creation. Yeah. So firstly, there are cognitive barriers in our own mind in identifying and engaging with indigenous knowledge. I may hear my mother saying something, but I do not classify it as management knowledge of any kind, or I might hear something in my context, but I do not identify it, because that's how my entire education system has wired my brain and my way of thinking. There are linguistic barriers. Sometimes I think in two languages, and I may not connect these two things. I may not connect what I hear in my mother tongue to what but whereas all my intellectual endeavors are all in English. So language is also another barrier. There are emotional barriers which may not be there in all societies, but we do have the emotional baggage of coloniality that has been passed on through generations. So we just need to be aware of it, and we need to work over it. There is also a deep-rooted sense of inferiority complex that, okay, maybe this is not good enough to offer. What is there about farmers and something that they are following? It is all very well known. What is there to propose it as theory? We think about it in that way, but maybe there is something in it which can be of value to the world. And then, of course, Professor Rajen Gupta's statement about the notions of secular and sacred that is causing artificial compartmentalization and therefore segregating knowledge. There are, apart from these individual or mental barriers, there are institution level barriers. If I publish in a journal which is on JMSR, my own colleagues in the strategic management area at IIM Calcutta might say, she used to do some serious research, now she's doing some mambo jumbo spirituality, right? So I have to work through those barriers as well. There are institutional barriers at the level of how academia operates in regions such as India, as well as the entire the global institutions such as an Academy of Management or Strategic Management Society or any of these other international bodies. Even in research methods or any of these other divisions, I think it is difficult to break through. But I think if we work together as a community, and if we are able to if we are able to articulate ourselves more strongly, or at least create these spaces for ourselves first to have our own conversations. For instance, we decided that we will have, in conferences, we've had several panel discussions on indigenous Indian management at INDAM. Even at Academy of Management, there have been spaces. The thing that I wanted to point out too is that IIM Calcutta, in its own journal, we said this is the oldest management journal is decision. Within our own journal, let us first create a special issue on indigenous Indian management and welcome articles. And most of these articles we nurtured, and we tried not to as much as possible not to decline any article unless it was really unpublished or not done well. But we were as welcoming as possible. Similarly, IMB Management Review also had a recent issue on has been it's in progress, the IKS issue. Both of these I'm on the editorial boards. The JMSR also has a recent call for papers, then just got closed on the feminine sacred. Then there's a book, Springer book, with some of my colleagues, which is also about alternative forms of organizing. In all of these, we are trying to create spaces for expression of such indigenous knowledge. There are several institutions also where such intellectual spaces are getting created. I've just listed them on the slide. I think if you can go to the next slide, Aditya, that's where I have where I'm speaking from, which is about creating intellectual spaces. Yeah, so I'll just leave it with this slide, and just wanted to say that there is more and more. Recently, Raghuji had invited me to the National Institute of Advanced Sciences, where there was a beautiful dialogue on the Ashtalakshmi framework, and then trying to see how else we could, how it could be applied in various contexts. MSR is one such space, and a very important and a big space where such contributions are welcome. I encourage you all to submit PDWs or papers or proposals and posters to MSR. Of course, this year the deadline is complete, but there are the activities of MSR continue throughout the year. So there is MSR colloquium which is coming up, and we just had a retreat, and there are many such activities of MSR. So please get connected to the LinkedIn of MSR, and then once you see the activities, please do join in for some of the very interesting sessions that keep coming up. Most of them are free. So this is where I'd just like to leave it, and this is my research purpose as well. Currently, I am the associate chair for the MSR division, and in that capacity, I hope that I can be also a nodal point to connect everybody and try and help to take this work forward as much as possible. So thank you so much. That's it from my end. Aditya, you're on mute. I could not hear you. Or
You may wish to experimenting with switching your microphone audio.
His microphone is already on.
So am I audible now?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, good. So we have already exceeded 90 minutes. I think there's a lot of Raja. Okay, very quickly, Raja, please make your point. You really wanted.
Well, thank you very much. I had a question for Ramyaji. Ramyaji, thank you very much for sharing your background. All these days, I thought you are. I did not know that you are an industry practitioner who moved into academic research. I am very curious to hear from you some guidance on some of the challenges which I presume you may also have faced, because after having worked in the industry, moving into academic world where you have to compete with people who have been studying to do their PhD thesis and who have been trained to think like machines who write, etc. There is a lot of pressure which everybody, I think research, like anything in the world, has pressurizing angles to it. So which means that I want to write better articles, I want to sound academic, etc., etc. And then you also want to make a difference while sticking to your calling. Could you share some words of wisdom on how did you balance this out, and how did you figure your way, and how did you create your identity?
Yeah, I'm
And
happy
this
to
is
have a
really
long
small.
conversation on that. Maybe I can give you a call, Raja. I'm not sure if this will be of interest to everybody else on this group because this is
Yes,
about practice and academia. Aditya, I hope that's okay.
we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. Yes,
Yeah,
I'll get in
yeah,
touch with you.
absolutely, absolutely. I think I mean, Ramya ma'am has to be present in subsequent, sessions also because there's so much to learn. And the point that Raja is making, we all would like to get those insights. But of course, now, okay, am I audible now, guys? Yeah. So I think the three speakers, okay, that part we have completed. Now, I think there's so much to discuss, but let's try to wrap it up now.
So sorry, Aditya, before you wrap up, I would invite Barbara to say a few words. Barbara,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you don't
yeah, we
mind.
should.
Thank you so much. I wanted
Yes.
to say it's been a real privilege to listen to all the presentations. Just the way my life unfolded, I landed up working at Wits Business School on pioneering work, looking at African management. What is it? And so I've remained, in this field. And so much of what you're saying will really help the new emerging chapter that we're forming. We're going to start with Southern Africa and Zimbabwe, but there's so many resonances. And I've always admired India for the way in which you have resisted colonialism and Christianity in ways that we haven't always been able to in Africa.
So thank you so much for that, Barbara. We're really looking excited for you to start this African chapter. And I think, Aditya, we need to keep speaking to the African chapter once they're formed. Maybe we can do some joint sessions or something like that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well,
And I can also now I can also guide Barbara on some of the steps, more closely. If she wants to start a chapter, there are some things I've also learned. So I'll be in touch with her. Okay, so here I think now we should proceed towards wrapping up this session. Just two things. I hope the slides are visible. So going ahead, broadly three discussion areas are there which we are looking forward to. I have just posted a form, Google form, in which you can write suggestions. But how we want to be different in this particular chapter, apart from academicians, we would also like to invite spiritual leaders from various disciplines, from various traditions. We would like to have a conversation with them, followed because not only scholars, we would like to invite from different streams, some from Bhakti Marga, some from different, like Mata Amritanandmayi, some of. So I'm just giving an example. And then, of course, dialogues with practitioners and organization leaders also. Not only, so we want, like Raghuji. Raghuji brings a different perspective, and Professor Manish Singhal, he gives so many, he interacts with industry in a huge way, and therefore has a lot of insights of the ideas of a practitioner. And so scholarly conversation, the usual one, and these two, and then of course the mentoring part. So these we have recognized. We invite your suggestions on which researchers should we invite, spiritual lead. Please tell me which spiritual leaders, which practitioners or organization leaders should we invite, and we will be benefited. Be sure people today who are present, I have noted, big, huge names, Raghuji, Manish sir, you guys have to be here for a session right away. I have noted. And I think, Parnam, I think we can now move towards the closure. So I would like to acknowledge the support from the top leadership at MSR. A lot of support from MSR tech team in, in publicizing the event and helping me out with this Zoom thing. My special thanks to the three dignitaries for their patience. Professor Rajen Gupta, Professor Payal Kumar, Professor Ramya. My pranam and heartfelt pranam to people who came in and who have attended